Hi, this is Lisa Sharkey from Harper Collins, and I'm here with our author and my good friend, Mitch Winehouse. He is going to talk to us frankly and candidly. We are coming up next month on the 5-year anniversary of the loss of his beloved and only daughter, Amy Winehouse. And I'm going to go back around the other side of the camera. Thank you, Mitch, so much for joining us today.
Pleasure, Lisa.
So tell us about what life has been like for you as a father having lost his daughter 5 years ago next month.
Well, that's a very, very good question. I mean, in most ways, it's been horrendous. You know, coming to terms with the loss of any family member is difficult. When it's a daughter, it's even more difficult, or a child, I should say, it's even more difficult. But in other ways, it's been very cathartic because of Amy's passing, or when Amy passed, I should say. We created the Amy Winehouse Foundation, and we've managed to help many hundreds of thousands of young people, which we probably wouldn't have done had Amy still been here. So, you know, maybe it was Amy's karma that she passed when she did, and maybe it's my karma now to do what I do. And it was a terrible situation, but as a group, as a family, we decided to try and make the best of it. And, you know, I think we've made a pretty good fist of it. I really do. I think that we and Amy or Amy, I should say, is making a positive contribution to many hundreds of thousands of young people.
Now, people who are watching live, we currently have 17 people and growing who are watching this live. 17. You can ask Mitch anything, yep, and he is not afraid to answer any of your questions. I am going to talk about a documentary that came out called Amy, that I know that the filmmakers approached you and asked for your participation, and you respected them and as filmmakers at the time, and you agreed to participate. And yet, in the wake of the film coming out, I think it was not a positive experience. And why don't you talk about that?
Well, what happened was that Universal, our music company, approached us and said, are we interested in doing a documentary on Amy? And we've been approached before about doing a documentary, and we always said no. But these guys had previously done a documentary on Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian racing driver. And, you know, as luck would have it, I'd actually seen that film a couple of weeks before. And I said, you know what, if anyone's going to do a good job, it's going to be these guys. At the time, I didn't know that there had been actual problems on the Senna film with Ayrton Senna's family and the producer and the director. So because they were due to go into another project, they had to have a quick decision. So we literally signed off before we really knew what we were doing, or we had enough time to consider it, which was a foolish move. And as the film progressed, it started off very well. The Asif Kapadia, the director, said, would we mind Blake, Amy's ex-husband, being in the film? And I said, well, how can you have a documentary without Blake in it? It's ridiculous, you know, you've got to have Blake in it. And so I thought, well, at least they're asking me. They sound like pretty decent people. But as time went on, a lot of Amy's friends were saying to me, do you know what these guys are doing? Because they interviewed me and I just got up and walked out. These are Amy's friends talking. You see a film that was based around two girls who never saw Amy for 4 years before she died. She was friendly with them when she was a kid, Lauren and Juliet, and they've really got nothing bad to say. And the other one is Nick Szymanski, he wasn't her manager, he was a friend of hers, and he was head of A&R at where was it? At the Island Records. And so you've got a film based around people who weren't with Amy the last 4 years of her life. Anybody who was a part of Amy's life in the last 4 years, Reg, her boyfriend, not in the film. I won't sit here and give you all the... Javon, her PA, Petra, her other PA, Chantel, Naomi. These were people who were with Amy every single day of the week. And they were a part of her life all of the time. And what they wanted to do, these guys, they wanted to portray Amy as a sad, lonely figure towards the end of her life. And what happened was an inevitable consequence of of her life. And it wasn't like that at all. The last 4 years of her life, there were very difficult periods, but there were some incredible periods as well. You kind of get a feeling when you watch the film that 2008, she's doing a show which was cancelled, and then the next thing is 2011, and she's in that horrible show in Belgrade. That's the kind of sense you go like that, and nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I'm a singer myself. I just went to a few months ago. We went to Brazil and we raised money in Brazil for a charity that we've got down there, Afro Reggae. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I hope these people in Brazil haven't seen the Amy film, because they don't hang around in Brazil. They could end up shooting me or something like that. But they were all coming up to me and they were saying, why wasn't Amy's tour of 2010, 2011 in the film? Because she did many shows in Brazil that were superb, but they weren't shown in the film because the filmmakers didn't want to give the impression that Amy was in control, that she had a boyfriend, which she did, that she had a friend, she was perfectly capable of having normal relationships. Amy's last 6 weeks of Amy's life, well, the film really didn't even explain properly that she was clear of drugs for 3 years at the time of her death. And before she passed away, the 6 weeks before she passed away, 5 weeks and 5 days, she hadn't drunk at all. So there were vast periods of time where she wasn't drinking. There were very short periods of time that she was drinking, and she was moving towards sobriety. So the people in Brazil were saying, what kind of a film is this? They all know about Reg. They said, why isn't Reg in the film? Why isn't this one in the film? Why isn't that one in the film? The thing is, Reg did 6 hours of interviews with the filmmakers. He just got up and walked out in the end because they weren't listening to him. They were saying, what was her relationship like with her dad? And Reg said, fine, everyone got on really well. They didn't really want to hear any of that stuff. They wanted to build up this image that Amy had a problem with her family and her friends, because they wanted to pretend that there weren't any friends. And nothing could be further from the truth. They've actually got me saying while I'm driving, Amy didn't need to go to rehab. That's what they've got in the film. Now, can you imagine me saying Amy didn't need to? But people, I've had to come off of Twitter and Facebook because it was making me ill. It was actually making me ill. People are saying to me, how can you say that Amy didn't need to go to rehab? What I actually said was, they were asking me a question about an incident in 2005. And I actually said, and I've got the transcripts to prove it, Amy didn't need to go to rehab Amy didn't need to go to rehab at that time. Later on was a different story. But they cut it so that I'm saying Amy didn't need to go to rehab. Now that's deliberate misleading. And what they've done is some people believe it, other people. It's funny, it's kind of, the people that have read my book, they're on our side, and the people that have seen the film, or a lot of them are on that side, and most people realise what a difficult situation it is dealing with somebody who's struggling with addiction. Asif Kapadia, when all this was kicking off, and I said, how can you do this? This is, what you've done is misleading, it's actually a lie. How can you actually do this? And I said to him, have you got any idea? He was saying things to me like, well, if you'd have been a different father. I said, okay, when you say a different father, what do you mean, better? Well, no, different. The guy had no idea about addiction whatsoever. And a lot of people who have gone to see the film who are struggling with addiction, or they've got a family member who's struggling with addiction, this is an insult. Because the guy doesn't know what he's talking about. If only I'd have been a better father, a different father. Couldn't have been a better father. I was a great father. And I love my daughter. So I don't want to turn this into a rant against Asif Kapadia, but it is a rant against Asif Kapadia.
So what have you learned about addiction? Because you've spent so much time now raising money, helping people. Why don't you first tell us a little bit about what the Amy Winehouse Foundation has done and the kinds of money you've raised and the kinds of programs you've been involved in over the past 5 years.
Okay, so when we started the foundation, the money that I received from my advances through here and in the UK and all over the world, all of that money went into the foundation. So when you added up all the advances, it's well in excess of £1 million. So that was the seed money that we had from Harper Collins and other stuff that was going on as well, and all that went into all that went into the foundation. And we started off really like a scattergun. We wanted to help all the kids struggling with disadvantage that we could. So we were working with children's hospices, we were donating to children's hospices, we were putting equipment in children's hospices, and we were doing other things like that. We were feeding 65 homeless kids every... These were things that really mattered to Amy. Homelessness, little kids struggling, you know, so you're talking about children's hospices where children are dying. That would have meant a great deal to us. So those were the kind of things that we were doing, feeding 65 homeless kids every day in London, working with partners who had an emergency a night shelter. We were working with them, and we were working with their outreach teams. Gradually, we transformed a little bit into creating our own projects. So we kind of tried to mirror the kind of things that Amy would have been concerned about. So Amy also struggled with an eating disorder. So the national eating disorder in the UK is called BEAT, B-E-A-T. And they had so many hits on their website that the website actually broke down. So they had to have a new website, and we paid for that new website so that 10 million people could get in touch with them every hour, it won't break down. So that's the other thing that we did. But we gradually realised that we wanted to create our own projects. So, you know, we have Amy's Yard. Amy's Yard is working with disadvantaged young people through music. Very, very successful. We're opening a new recovery house in London. So when this is a women-only recovery house. So when women come out of rehab, they've got somewhere to go. Otherwise, it could be that they go back to where they were before, and the problems that they were facing before could kick in. We will be able to alleviate that problem for a small amount of women. But I think the largest project that we have is the Amy Winehouse Resilience Program. That's our schools project.
Is that the one you're most proud of?
I'm proud of all of them. But the schools project is, the last 2 years we've spoken to 140,000 kids about the 140,000 kids about the not only alcohol and drugs, but the other things that affect young people today: peer pressure, self-harm, bullying, resilience, how to be resilient and to be able to say no.
And who goes in? Who is the person that's doing the talking to these children?
Well, it's not one person. You know,
right, clearly.
We have clinical partners, so that if they're called ad action, so that if a teacher, parent, or a kid has an issue, we can deal with it on the spot. But the people that deliver the message, we call shares, are people that are recovering addicts. So these are people that have been there, they've done it. This isn't the school teacher standing up and telling them about drugs and don't do that, it's bad for you. These are people that really have experience. And the project is evaluated by Harvard University and by Bath University, and the evaluations and the outcomes are extraordinary. It's making an enormous amount of difference to young people's lives. In the Caribbean, because you asked me about all of our projects, in the Caribbean we have music therapy in schools in Jamaica and on St. Lucia, and here in the USA, yesterday I was at our project in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music. In there we have 11 young people on scholarship. It's called the Amy Winehouse Jazz Project. It's working with disadvantaged young people through jazz. We're creating ensembles, a three-piece ensemble around a bigger and a larger jazz group. And my philosophy is, especially in an area which is high on gun crime, you put a drum or a trumpet or a guitar in someone's hands, they're not about to shoot anybody else. It has an incredible impact on the community and primarily on themselves. We work with the New York Youth Jazz Orchestra, where it's New Orleans, Louisiana is the #1 area of child malnutrition in the USA. So not only do we work with the music therapy down there, we also feed the kids, and we work with the Dreyfus School in West Palm Beach in Florida, which is a performing arts school. And it sounds posh because West Palm Beach is an extremely affluent area, but the kids go from all over southern Florida to go there. So we have a project in there called Amy's Light, L-I-G-H-T, and it's a kind of a hardship fund so that you know, we would be able to identify kids who